Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nextlander. I almost said Watchcast, but I'm not hosting that podcast today. Today I am hosting the Nextlander podcast because Vinny Caravella is not here, but Brad Shoemaker, you're still with me.
I'm here. My butt is in the seat. I'm ready to talk. You're in the big chair. How does it feel?
It kind of feels like the chair I'm normally in. I'm just getting louder than I normally do on this podcast because I've got to do host energy.
You got to get profesh.
Yeah, and I am also hosting this week. We do have a guest, William Smith. How you doing, man?
Hey, hoy, hoy. I'm doing great, Alex. How about yourself?
I'm getting by. There's some people chainsawing a tree in my backyard right now, so hopefully that, if you hear any chainsaw noises, no murders happening, just a tree coming down.
No, you're just a big Jackal fan.
Absolutely. I love Jackal. I love chainsaws. I love chainsaw massacres, and I love having a tree that is no longer going to fall over.
Was it dead?
So that's the one the groundhog pushed up. That's the one that had where the big dirt mound was.
So, what does a tree cost to remove on the East Coast? Like, what's your top? Like, how big is a tree? You talking about like 60, 70, 80 feet?
No. It's not even that. It's maybe 20 feet tall at most. It is not a super old tree. It is one that was already kind of falling apart a little bit when we moved in, and it's also the least important tree in our backyard as far as like shade or like where it's placed. So it really isn't a big deal. I think it's like $400 or $500 or something to get rid of that thing. Maybe slightly more because they're also taking the dirt mound and grinding that up and flattening it.
Nice.
That sounds like a bargain to me. I would have expected I expected just like getting a tree guy out there was probably four figures, but
no, I think if I remember correct, because it's a smaller tree and they said it wasn't going to be a long job, they were not charging crazy money for it, if I remember correctly. I forget. I looked at what it was going to cost and I said, okay, that doesn't seem insane. And then I promptly forgot about how much it actually costs because my partner handles a lot of these negotiations.
Well, also, that's probably the only way to own a home, right? Because if you think about it, if you think about the costs constantly, it'll probably eat you alive.
Oh, yeah.
Look, there's a threshold beyond which you can't stop thinking about it. Like, I still think about that 80-foot Monterey cypress that we had to have taken out in 2010 or 2011. Mm-hmm. Because, that was a vacation that went away when we had that thing hauled off. Maybe two, depending on how extravagant we were. So some of them stick with you, but it's nice when it's a hey, I don't have to worry about that one.
Yeah, I mean, we have a list of things that are this is going to cost us more than $1,000 things we need to do to the house, and we are trying to space those out in a way so that we do not end up in a situation where it's like, cool, we fixed everything. Now what do we do because we have no money left?
Yeah. Hey, it's time for staycations. All staycations. Indeed. All the time.
Yeah, this year we kind of came to the conclusion that this is going to be the year of doing house stuff, and then next year will probably be when we start traveling again.
That makes sense. I mean, look, you always have to be ready for like the surprise, like, oh, my hot water heater stopped working or something like that. But for the most part, it's pretty predictable. And you'll know 3 or 4 years before you need a roof if you're lucky and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think the big one I really want is new floors because the floors in this place are just very old and creaky and some of the floorboards bend in a little bit in a way that just feels like, not like they're going to break, but I want that flat, sturdy surface. I don't want every footstep I have to be like a weird, loud creak,
Yeah, we did when we moved into our house 16, 17 years ago now, we had the floors redone, which was great. But we're coming up on 20 years, we probably need to take everything out of the house and do it again because things change over time.
That's got to be a wake up call when the thing that you had redone now needs to be redone.
Yeah.
Been here a long time.
I'm going to go and tell you it's not great. We moved into this house and we're going to be here for 5 years. It'll be great. And here we are 20 years later. So.
Yeah, we kind of went in with no real plan to ever move again, though we know we probably will someday. It's very much just like, hey, we're going to be here for as long as we're going to be here. We'll fix things as we fix things. If someone comes in here and offers us twice our home value or something to just get the fuck out of here, we will. But otherwise, no reason to leave. We're not having kids. We don't really need to expand. We have room for a dog. If we want to get a dog, we're fine.
That's the right attitude, I think.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's time for some video games. What do you say, guys?
Yeah, I am familiar with those.
I played a video game.
Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this little franchise called Star Wars, but I'm to understand that maybe someone here played the upcoming Star Wars game, not even one that's already out yet.
Yeah, so a long time ago in a desk exactly where I'm sitting right now, Ubisoft asked me if I wanted to play Star Wars Outlaws for a few hours one morning.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like they sent me a Discord and I clicked a button and I was suddenly on somebody else's computer playing I think it's coming out at the end of August, Star Wars Outlaws game.
Yeah, it's like literally the last day of August, I think.
Yeah, okay, so first off, it's the kind of Star Wars game I've wanted for a long time because you're not a Jedi, you're not whacking stuff with lightsabers. You know, if you put things that I like about Star Wars on a list, like the original Dark Forces, where you're a rebel spy, high on my list of all time Star Wars bangers, right?
I'm sorry, a rebel spy? Are you really going to do Kyle Katarn that way?
Look, you're Kyle. When we started that game, we didn't have a deep affection for Kyle Katarn. He was an enigma, you know.
Sure.
Although I guess he talked. What? Okay, I'm out.
I can't get behind a Jedi named Kyle. I'm sorry, I never have been able to, and I never will be able to.
Well, okay, so problems with Kyle Katarn aside, Outlaws is about this woman named Kay Vess, who's your typical kind of down on your luck scoundrel type, but she's not like a crusty old scoundrel like Han Solo. She's a kind of young, fresh rapscallion, just starting to get into trouble.
Just got out of her scoundrel internship, is what you're saying.
Yeah, look, I think you probably do a couple of scoundrel internships in this game. The thing they set us up with was like the first 3 hours of the game, and then they kind of skipped us forward a little bit to one of the later segments. And yeah, like she doesn't fit the typical. Like they definitely pitch her as a scoundrel, and she doesn't fit the typical kind of Star Wars tropes. Like she's not super confident. She's not real cocky. She's maybe outwardly cocky, but she has this little alien buddy, Nix, who's like kind of looks like a furry axolotl.
Yeah, that was kind of my take. And this is the cute thing for this game because every Star Wars thing must have a cute thing. This is the cute thing.
Yeah, like I started to say, did they go for droid or did they go for alien? They went for alien here.
Yeah, I like the alien. The alien is more so in the Respawn Star Wars game. The cute robot is kind of he just gives you health and occasionally hacks things for you.
Yeah.
In this, it's much more. The alien's much more active. Like you can use him to distract enemies. You can use him to steal stuff. You can use him to hit buttons sometimes or like sabotage something. He can open gas vents to blow up bad guys. He's voiced by D. Bradley Baker, which I think is hilarious because D. Bradley Baker did all the clone voices in Clone Wars, the cartoon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And also a bunch of alien, like he does, he notably does alien voices, but he's like, and it's all like the alien, Nix doesn't talk, Nix makes sounds. So
right. It's a chirper more than anything else.
Yeah. I think that's really funny. Kay is voiced by Humberly Gonzalez, who I knew her from Nobody. Sorry, what the fuck, David Cross, the other guy,
Bob Odenkirk.
Bob Odenkirk. What the hell is wrong with me?
Yes,
I couldn't remember either, Alex. It's fine.
We're all getting old.
Yeah, it happens. She's also been in a bunch of other stuff. She's been in like Hallmark movies and like she's been around. She was in Paw Patrol, the movie, which I think both of you probably were first in line.
That was on my top 10 list that year.
Many times.
2022 bangers. She was also in Far Cry 6. So okay. I think that's probably the connection here because a lot of the team at Massive that made this game was on Far Cry's previously. So, like she's like a normal person. She doesn't have force powers. She has like, if she gets shot at a lot, she can tag and shoot 3 or 4 enemies at a time if you're kind of in trouble. But for the most part, it's just like a third-person shooter. You're going through the world, you're exploring stuff, you're doing stuff for people, you're getting in trouble with other people. There's a lot of factions, so it's all about navigating the underworld and dealing with the Pikes and the Hutts and the Crimson Dawn and this new thing that they made up, presumably so you can wipe them out at the end of the game called the Ashiga Clan.
Okay.
You need one faction that doesn't have to survive the game.
Exactly. And of course there's Imperials everywhere. So it's like,
right.
It's set between Empire and Return of the Jedi. like the Imperials are super, super crooked because you're on like all these dirtbag out of the way planets, and the Imperials are like, hey man, I can make your problem go away for a little if you toss a little cheddar my way. You like everybody's hitting everybody up for like shaking everybody down for credits left and right. And
is that just a story thing? Is that just like a plot element that you might bribe somebody, or is that like a moral choice kind of thing? Like, can you actually choose to do that and like change how the mission flows?
So the one time that this came up in a mission for me, I was just walking along and an Imperial was shaking down, I think, a Quarren merchant. I can't remember. And when I I engaged, I didn't have to engage, but I like jumped in and was like, hey, do you really need to hassle this guy? Was what happened when I engaged. And then the choice I had was I can either pay off the Imperial thing. I can be like, yeah, just beat the guy down, or I could just say nothing. And I paid off the bribe for the merchant, and then the merchant gave me a discount on stuff from them in the future.
Okay, so that's more like a little ambient, just kind of one-off side thing.
Yeah, but so there's often like there's always, it seems like when you have a big option, there's always the opportunity to kind of cross somebody. Like so this game has like the factions are really important to the game. It seems like you like if you have good faction with a good reputation with one of the factions, like the Pikes, you can just walk through their areas, like through their like increasingly secure areas. If you don't have faction, you have to like those areas are stealthy for you, and you have to like sneak through. And depending on how bad your faction is, your rep is, it's either insta fails or you just get kicked out of the area when you're discovered. So like managing those factions, and it seems like it's not just the main factions, there's also small factions. So there's like shopkeeper factions and stuff like that. It is what it felt like. I don't know if that's actually what was going on, but it feels almost like if you think about when you played old school WoW and you had like every time you do a quest for like the night elves, you'd get up in one faction and down in another. It's kind of that. And so you can game it. I think the game is intentionally structured so you're not going to have positive faction with everybody at the same time.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask, like, you probably can't just like grind rep for everybody endlessly.
So there are definitely side missions. The side missions feel much more like a Deus Ex Human Revolution or something like that than like Far Cry or Assassin's Creed, where there's just a million. Like there's not icons like the map is not lousy with icons of things that you can do to manipulate your rep. Although if you do want to shift rep, it seems like there's pathways to do that pretty much anytime you want in the game. And it like, but at the same time, most of the missions I hit that were faction adjacent had like two possible ways to do it. So one thing would be to just go steal something from the Pikes, or the other one would be to go complete a quest for the Crimson Dawn, and you'd get the same item at the end of your goal would be complete either way. But depending on whether you had good faction with the Pikes or good faction with the Crimson Dawn, it might be easier to go one way or the other.
No, so basically it's just like you are trying to play those factions as best you can so that you can do the stuff you need to do. And, basically, it doesn't seem like it really changes the overall dynamic of the gameplay. It just either makes it harder or easier.
Yeah, and so the games, there's a lot of, there's both faction-specific quest givers, so like, there's a Crimson Dawn Twi'lek lady who gives you stuff to do, but if the Crimson Dawn hate you, she won't engage, right?
Okay, so you won't get those quests, basically.
Yeah, you won't get those, but there's also neutral quest givers who give you things that like at the end of the mission, you'll have the option to either get good with the Crimson Dawn or get good with the Pikes when you complete the kind of neutral mission. So like I said, you can't. It doesn't seem like you can make choices. I mean, I'm sure you can definitely make choices that will be irreversible in a single game. But if you're just talking about faction stuff, it seems like you can always pull it back if you want to.
Okay.
And then different planets have different balances of factions. Surprisingly, like the first 3 hours of the game, I hardly dealt with Imperials at all. Like they show up as like crooked imps that you can bribe to help you with other things. But I didn't fight any stormtroopers until like I was out wandering the open world and ran into some scout troopers on speeder bikes and was like, well, these guys are dead. But most of the missions seem to be like almost like they're a mixture of fail and no fail stealth missions. So like the fail ones are you're creeping around in the Pike area. If one of the Pike guards sees you, then you're spotted. They don't have like a Last of Us style stealth meter or something like that, so you kind of have to use judgment. There's usually a fair amount of time between when they're kind of aware and when they actually spot you, so you can like if somebody gets a hey, I've noticed something icon above their head, you can go hide back in behind boxes and kind of let that cool off.
Gotcha.
But then there's also a fair there's a fair number, and often it'll switch midway through a mission of no fail stealth missions that are like Last of Us style, where you're kind of creeping through something and you take out a couple of enemies stealthily, and then somebody spots you and all of a sudden it's guns hot and you just shoot your way out of that one. And it doesn't seem to penalize you one way or the other for that stuff. Maybe a little bit of reputation loss, but yeah.
What would you say like the general feel of the game is? Like, how is the shooting? How is the general like when you say third person shooter, are we talking like kind of like a GTA, or are we talking more of like something that's a little bit more refined as far as like the shooting and the action goes?
So it feels more, the controls are tighter than GTA for the most part. Like GTA shooting always felt kind of random and bad, especially on gamepad. I played most of the time with the gamepad on this session. They let us choose whichever we wanted, but third person games I tend to play gamepad first. And I was a little worried at first, because the first thing you do after you kind of gain control of the character is do that adrenaline tagging and blasting 3 people at a time. It's like, oh god, if the shooting's so bad they have to have this end, that doesn't seem good. But then the control was tight. The sound design is really, really nice. Like the blasters feel good. I used a DualSense and had like nice haptics on the I didn't have trigger haptics because we were playing through Parsec.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm sitting here trying to envision the like chain of APIs from a PC game in another office through Discord, through Parsec to a Steam or a PlayStation controller on PC. I'm shocked that worked as well as it did.
Yeah, but you did have like the normal Rumble stuff was there, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I think I felt like the controls were pretty good on foot. Some of the speeder controls, you start out with what is obviously a beater speeder that you're going to spend some time upgrading and doing side missions to get faster and faster, and it did not control well out of the box. It was real floaty, and part of that is the parsec lag probably, but part of it is just that it is like driving a Pinto, man.
But by design, it's a junker basically.
I think that was my take. I don't know if that's actually the intent. It could have been like a lot of times that kind of stuff is what you do toward the end of development.
Sure.
Yeah, like tweaking those controls is what you do toward the end. And like I said, the parsec light latency wasn't bad most of the time. There was one kind of like they call them data spikes, the things that like the R2D2 probe that you have on a screwdriver that you jam into the thing, and there was like a timing puzzle with those that was just absolutely brutal with the delay. So yeah, I'm gonna hold judgment on the speeder controls until then. The flying through space bits felt really good. Like you can load up in your freighter and fly through space, and it felt like a Rogue Squadron-y kind of like, you know, there's lasers, there's lock-on missiles, you have some dodges, some other stuff.
So definitely, like you say, Rogue Squadron, like definitely more on the kind of arcade end of the Star Wars space combat spectrum. Like definitely not TIE Fighter.
Yeah, I didn't have to shift my shields forward or back.
Okay.
But also, it seems like maybe there's a GTA kind of heat component to that, because when I was flying through space, a debug prompt came up that said, reset your wanted level, your wanted status. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't expect that, but I guess there's faction areas in space too. And if you encroach into like Imperial space when you're not supposed to, the Imperials will get upset with you and like come after you. There seems like there might be a bounty system, because multiple people talked about me having a death mark. It didn't come up in the part of the game that I was in necessarily, but like there were definitely people that would reset my status my wanted status with different factions in exchange for money or side quest stuff.
Did you get a sense of like how much freedom there is in the space travel exploration type stuff? Like I feel like they've kind of pitched this as like you know, you can land on a planet and manually fly your ship down. It's the thing you've always wanted that No Man's Sky does, kind of stuff. But like, and I assume there can't be that many different planets to go to, and I don't know do they have guardrails up where it's like, you can technically only actually go to the next story planet right now. Like, is there much freedom to actually like fly to different places and explore?
So they only had a couple of planets unlocked on the saves that we were on. There were also like dungeony kind of space destinations. Like we flew to this Imperial station at one point that had an open area around it. It felt open worldy, right? It wasn't like 3-dimensional space. It didn't seem like it was as open as No Man's Sky is, except for there wasn't a load screen between space and landing. You'd just fly through some clouds and then all of a sudden the world's underneath you. But I don't think you could just land in the middle of the open world area. It seemed like you landed on designated pads on the planets once you were there. When you were flying through space, there was other stuff to do aside from just the mission. And we didn't have a whole lot of time in the space areas, so I didn't do any of the side stuff in space, but there were definitely other icons on the map that I could have gone to. The map was, I'm going to tell you, the maps are rough. The maps are a little bit difficult to manage, I found. And there's not, like, I like that they don't have like breadcrumbs or like on-screen elements that point you in the direction of where you should be going, and they leave it up to you to navigate the maps. The maps seem small enough that you'll eventually learn most of where you're going, especially on the kind of core planets that you spend a lot of time on. I don't know. And also when you're in the dungeon, like when you were on the Imperial Station thing, we didn't have a super good map until you'd explored an area. So the map filled in as you were going. So it was like, it felt like you were exploring something. It felt like you were doing something really scary when you were on the Imperial Station, which often doesn't happen in, like, you know, in Jedi Survivor game, in the Respawn games, after you kind of level up your stuff a little bit, it feels like you're an unstoppable badass everywhere you go. And like there aren't places that feel scary in those games, I don't think. And this, like, creeping around the Imperial Station felt like you were going to mess up and it was going to be the end of your game.
Gotcha. Now, I imagine they probably are still holding some of this stuff back where they can, but I'm just curious, any familiar Star Wars faces making cameos or anything?
So I will tell you, I was pleasantly surprised that I did not see people that I recognized from the cartoons or movies.
Okay.
There were definitely, like, lots of races. There are lots of little freaks. There's
I mean, it's the Star Wars universe. You expect to see that stuff.
Well, but like sometimes in Star Wars games, they just have a lot of people and then like a couple of Twi'lek or whatever, right?
Yeah.
People, things that look like
Greedo
people.
walks in and that's kind of it.
Yeah, like in this, we saw there were Pantorans, which I don't think I've ever seen in a video game before. There were Rhodians, Twi'leks, Pikes. I think that there was a Quarren. I'm pretty sure that merch was a Quarren. I couldn't find that in the video. A lot of Mon Cal. There's like one of the main quest givers is this older female Mon Cal who's just like, she just sounds like she's been really under the death sticks for a long time, man.
Truck stop waitress in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, very much, but like she's also like, hey, you're gonna get killed if you don't stop screwing around. You know, she's like a mentor kind of. It's a good character. I liked her a lot.
Cool.
The thing I would say,
so it sounds like you had fun with it.
I was ready to play more. Like, I was stoked and ready to play more. And like, it had, if you're putting on the open world spectrum where one end is like Assassin's Creed, where it's like a bazillion icons everywhere you go and you're just like overwhelmed with stuff to do, and the other end is like Ghost of Tsushima, where it's like, hey, you just wander around and meet some people and they ask you to do some stuff and then you go do it, and it's not super overwhelming. It was definitely toward the Ghost of Tsushima end of the spectrum, I would say.
Okay. I think that's kind of what I want. I want a slightly older flavor of Ubisoft open world game that is not the 150 hours of map barf type stuff. Like, I have my issues with Tsushima, but the length was definitely not one of them. I felt like that game knew what it had and it did not try to overstuff itself.
And also it was a vibe game. Like, they knew the vibe that they wanted, which was, hey, you're a samurai walking around feudal Japan doing some stuff.
Yeah.
And this is very much like, hey, you're what's her name? Kat is definitely like earlier in her scoundrel journey than even like Han Solo was in the Solo prequel. Like, she's raw. She's new. She's figuring this out as she goes. She talks to Nyx a lot, like internal monologue stuff to Nyx. So you know what she's thinking, and she's not super confident at least at the part of the game we were in. And like it all works together to give you a, hey, I'm figuring this out as I go vibe, which is good. It's what I wanted from this. So
did the story seem interesting? I mean, I know you didn't see that much, just playing like kind of the intro and stuff, but like did it hook you at all?
I mean, it's the trope, right? You're down on your luck. You gotta have that one big score, but to get the one big score, you're gonna have to get your team together. And like the characters were interesting. The writing on the side stuff was good enough that I wanted to engage with it. At one point, the guy who was watching the person from Massive who was watching me was like, "Hey, you might want to go back to the main stuff if you want to actually get to the end of this segment in the time that we have." Which I appreciated. It was nice. So like it was compelling. It was a fun world to spend time in, which is what I want from these kinds of games. And like I said, the shooting felt good. The space stuff, wouldn't have minded having more time in space. And then the Imperial stuff, like the Imperials, they added menace back to Stormtroopers, which you haven't had in a Star Wars game in a while.
Well, sounds like, I mean, I think we've kind of come to our collective conclusion that we are all fairly looking forward to this one and want to play it. I have my reservations just because I've played a lot of Ubisoft style open world stuff in recent years, but it feels like maybe they took a more focused approach to this one based on both what Brad had talked about when he played it and what you had talked about, and that excites me, actually. There isn't a lot of Star Wars media I'm that excited about these days.
Yeah, it felt more like Far Cry 3 or 4 than Far Cry 5 or 6, right?
Right.
If that's a meaningful
we have
comparison
to go back.
to you. Yeah.
Wait, hang on. You're not like a return guy for Far Cry, are you?
No, just for open world games that don't take 150 hours to play.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
You know what? I can get behind that.
Look, I want more pet bears, okay? That's
Absolutely.
all I'm asking for.
All right. Unless there's anything else, I think we are going to take our first break. But that is Star Wars Outlaws out at the end of the month, and we will definitely be checking that out when it comes around. But for now, let's take a break, and then we'll talk about some more video games. All right, we are back, and it is now time to talk about the hottest alien shooting game of 2024. And by that, I'm meaning the hottest alien shooting game of 2022, because that's when it came out in Japan first. This is Earth Defense Force 6, of course.
Bugs.
It is Earth Defense Force. I downloaded this kind of on a whim yesterday because I was going to be streaming. And I was like, I need something dumb. I need something brainless, something that I know I can just jump in here. I don't have to use my brain whatsoever. And there are very few video games that are more perfect for that exact scenario than the Earth Defense Force series.
Yeah, like there's going to be two things. A whole lot of weird aliens, probably ants. Mm-hmm. And you're going to run backwards and shoot a whole lot.
Yeah, sometimes you run forwards or sometimes you dodge from left to right. But otherwise, yeah, you were basically just running around hammering that trigger button. Though there are different character classes. There's a guy in a mech suit. There's a lady that has a jetpack. There's some dude that just calls in drones. He's basically like a military wizard more than anything else. But in the end, the thing you are doing is shooting giant creatures and aliens and UFOs and what have you. I only played through the first 7 missions or so, but in that time I saw a lot of giant ants. I saw a number of giant hornets. I saw a bunch of walking what appear to be frogs with laser guns attached to them.
Hang on, frogs aren't bugs.
No, it's not all bugs. It is sometimes other enlarged Earth-based creatures that also now have guns and targeting reticles on their eyes.
Were you on the other Earth Defense Force review beat back in the day? Like, have you played all of these, I guess is what I'm asking.
I feel like I have touched the majority of them. I can't say that I've played all of them, but I think I may have reviewed at least the first or second one or both. I can't remember. Earth Defense Force 2017 is one I know I definitely reviewed, but that is not from 2017. I think that might have been the first one.
Have they really changed all that much?
Well, the class stuff has been added, but the thing is, the way they add stuff is extremely minor from game to game. They add the class stuff, but the classes, from what I can tell, are not that different from the last game. They've made some slight tweaks to some of the balancing, but that's pretty much it. No, the thing if anything, they are steadfastly dedicated to both never really changing the gameplay in a major way and also never updating the graphics past the PS3 era.
That's appropriate.
Yeah.
There seems like there's a weird amount of fervor around this one. Is it just because there hasn't been one in a while? I don't know.
Define fervor.
I mean, people seem excited that EDF is back.
I guess. I mean, the last one was 2017, 2018. I think it came over here in 2018. It has been a while, though. I mean, the Steam reviews for this are kind of mixed, but I assume that's probably the case for all these games. I don't know. If there's fervor, I don't really know why, because it really is just another one of these. It does have co-op. It does have online play if you want to do that. But the campaign, from what I played of it, is literally just, hey, do you like that thing that you've been doing in all these other games? Let's go do that again.
I'm seeing like a shocking amount of FMV in this trailer on the Steam page. Did any of that make its way into the actual game?
Not that I saw at all in my time with it.
That's a real bummer because there's a real crappy fake CNN like reporter on the scene bit going in this trailer. It's a shame that they spent that money and didn't actually put it in the game.
They had that in 5. Like the reporter would come in and let you know when like a new type of alien was found.
Yeah.
When the frogs showed up or something.
It's possible there's some of that stuff in there. I just didn't get to it. But what I can say is that what little story it does seem to have is delivered in more or less the same way you would expect, which is just a lot of, NPCs kind of yelling at one another and sort of telling you what's going on. But not really, because mostly they're just talking about, man, I'm so hungry. I wish I could eat a monster. And then everyone being like, you shouldn't do that. You're going to throw up everywhere. And that's as much flavor as you're getting as far as like what's going on in this world right now.
They've never approached the deep lore of Earth Defense Force as to why the bugs are so big.
I mean, they're big because the aliens make them big and then they send them after us. It's the Pacific Rim thing of this otherworldly force has just taken the things that exist in the world and then turned them against us, Yeah.
Well, look, sometimes it's comforting to know that certain ththings never change.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think if you did make a really nice-looking EDF game at this point, people would revolt. Like, that's not what people come to this for. And, the destructibility is a very big factor in it, and that's something that is harder to do when you add a lot of resolution to the thing.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I use this term lovingly, but would you describe this game as slop?
Yeah, it's a specific flavor of slop, but yeah, kind of.
Maybe schlock is a better word. Schlock is a bit less critical.
Well, it's extremely schlock. I mean, it always has been. It kind of bases itself in that very schlocky, like 50s, 60s, theremin-fueled, like monster movie type shit, but, with a more futuristic sci-fi bent. But, as far as the slop goes, I mean, it's just the gameplay is nothing. There is strategy to it if you, like, are playing with other people or you play on the higher difficulties, because it does get fairly hard. But what you're doing never really changes. It just depends on what guns do you want to use, what loot did you collect, but otherwise you jump in there, it's just a different giant swarm of something that you have to shoot.
It looks like the Steam reviews are mixed because they have the EGS, an EGS requirement, and it's not the normal, hey, we hate EGS, it's that when the EGS achievements pop up, it takes away keyboard and mouse control.
Oh God,
that's not good.
Which seems bad.
Epic Game Store. We should say if people don't know.
Which is weird because I don't think this game is on Epic Game Store right now.
Does it have crossplay? The reason people do EGS most of the time right now is because you get free crossplay.
It might be
and NAT punching if you use their service.
I played on PS5, so I didn't really run into any of this, but that would make some sense. But it is that game itself is not actually on the Epic Game Store, I don't think.
Yeah, it's kind of like the name is a little confusing because now that, like he said, now they're just kind of middleware that enables cross-platform stuff in addition to being a storefront.
Well, and just to be clear, it's middleware that enables cross-platform stuff without charging the developers, which is unusual. Usually that's not super expensive, but it is an ongoing cost.
Right.
So like if you want to have crossplay, it's the cheapest, fastest way to do that on Unreal Engine games, probably.
Well, expect no less from EDF.
No. Yeah. Look, that's the method of EDF. Expect nothing. That's it. Expect what you have always played with these games. You will get it. That is it.
Yeah, the last 2 Steam news posts are about sign in with an Epic Games account, saying, hey, we use this for crossplay. Sorry for the lack of notice. And then, hey, we're looking at how to remove this, but we don't have an ETA yet. And we'll continue to work on it while we address feedback. So
it does seem really annoying that they would have a thing that takes away your keyboard control just because an achievement popped up. Like, that's just not a good interface.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this is a thing that you can choose which bits and pieces you engage with as a developer. So,
and maybe they chose the wrong bits.
Yeah. Whoops.
Well, fair enough. It is a $60 game. Definitely don't pay $60 for this game. I would say, when it goes on discount, if you like these games, it's just fine, but you don't need to be paying full price for it. That's my personal opinion. Now, another game that I did download, but I've not actually had a chance to sit down and play because I know... Yeah,
I beat you to it for
once.
You
beat me to it on this one. Because I know it's only going to take me like half an hour to beat it at some point, but I just need that half an hour, so I'm going to do it. The latest strange scaffold game, and by that I mean the one that's out now, not the one that's out in a few weeks, because goddamn it, the studio cannot fucking stop itself. Clickolding.
Yeah, what is this? Their third game this year? Second and a half? Something like that. I'm going to tell you right now, if you finish this game in under 30 minutes, you have to tell me how you did it.
Okay.
Because I sure as hell did not. I might not have been too far off of it, but this is a weird one because I guess it's my turn to be here talking about a strange scaffold game for once.
And you know what? I'm happy to be the one to sit back this time. So I kind of know what clickholding is, but why don't you paint a picture for me?
It's a first person, and forgive me, I'm a little hoarse today if I kind of crack up through
too
this.
Much clickholding.
I guess so. Too much clicking took it out of my vocal cords this morning. Thank you for handling the hosting duties today.
No problem.
It is it's a first person. Like I started to call it a narrative adventure, but it's like I don't even know if it's a first person narrative game, but it's extremely short. Like you said, you boot it up, and it's like. It's got a little content warning about some of the stuff that's going to happen in it, but also is like, hey, this is a focused 30 to 45 minute experience. Just to kind of know what you're getting into going in. The setting is you are in a hotel, you are locked in a hotel room with a mysterious and like very sinister masked man, and you are holding a clicking device, like a little digital clicker. It's just a little box with a button on it and a little digital readout on it.
The kind of thing they use like when they're trying, like someone in a door is trying to track.
Yeah. It's like a
how many people are coming through.
Like a counting device. And this man is basically exhorting you to click. Like right off the bat. And we're really like...
I want to see you click.
Like it's exactly that. It is exactly that. Like it feels like fetishistic right off the bat. He's like, I need you to click. It is very much, you proceed to very much be ordered around this room by this guy. Like it's very quickly established that he has a large sum of money that he waves around that you clearly need for like an operation, I think he says. But you only get the money if you click the thing 10,000 times.
Okay.
And you are going to, I guess it's not a spoiler to say, you are going to click this thing 10,000 times.
Okay.
In the course of finishing this thing.
How did you feel after clicking it for 10,000 times?
So I went through a number of permutations. Like at first I was just clicking the mouse like normal speed because a ton of stuff, and I won't give too much away, but a ton of stuff is keyed to the number of clicks you're on. You'll hit you'll hit a click threshold and something will happen. He'll make you, so he makes you stop quite a bit to kind of order you around to make you do more stuff, which like at first it's not clear if he's like trying to humiliate or debase you by making you do different things, but like later it becomes more clear that he's kind of there for his own purposes. I won't get into it too much.
Yeah, I don't need you to spoil the whole story because again, it's not a very long game. But
but there's a bunch of stuff around the room you can interact with in addition to clicking this thing, like the clock radio, the bathroom, the trash can, TV. He likes for you to click in a certain way. He needs for you to click in a certain way.
Do you get the sense that he's getting gratification from the way your clicking methodology and technique?
Yes, but maybe not in the way you're thinking. Like, maybe not in an explicitly sexual way. There might be actually something more fundamental going on.
Because just to be clear, like the logo of the game, the C and the I, the leading on them is such that it looks like a U. So it's not spelling click holding. It looks like it's spelling something else.
I mean, he is referred to in the documentation as the click hold.
Okay.
Yes.
So like they very much know what they're going for.
Okay.
It wants to watch you click.
But like I said, there's more to... I mean... There is more to the story, but also like it's very open to interpretation, I'll say.
Yeah.
Like it's
about dark haunting vibes and, maybe where the story goes, but like the initial setup is very much is this notion of you are doing some hotel eroticism here for this guy.
Very, very much so. Also, I don't know if you've got a screenshot in front of you, but he's wearing a mask that is...
It's like a big hood, right?
Sort of, kind of looks somewhere between a duck and like a scrotum, basically.
Yeah, and his backlit eyes, right?
It's very creepy. It's quite creepy and gets kind of stranger from there. But to answer your question, I clicked a bunch on the mouse. Then I realized you could just hold the button down, but that's not very fast.
No.
So it's going to take you a good while to finish this game if you don't click manually. Thank God after like 2,000 clicks or so, maybe less than that, maybe 1,000 clicks, I realized you can also hit the space bar. Because I was for the speed that I was clicking the mouse, I was genuinely starting to worry about the switch in the mouse a little bit because I was going full on arcade game, like test your might style. Yeah. So I recommend moving the space bar for that sort of thing. But it's a weird exercise in like tedium and menace, I guess I would say. Like there's something menacing about what's going on, but it's also incredibly dull.
Yeah.
I assume that's what they're going for, because there are long stretches, especially later on, where he kind of stops prodding you. Like it's very front loaded with a lot of his instructions and stuff and his philosophizing. But at a point, you are just going to be clicking hundreds or 1,000 times in a row without much of anything happening.
Yeah.
And there's no economy to increase the
no, definitely
per click. Yeah.
Definitely not that kind of game, although I did consider setting up an auto clicker halfway through this thing. I was like, I could just go get something that would feed inputs into this very quickly to really get through it. And then I was like, aren't I robbing myself of the true experience here?
Yeah.
Like
you're not getting what the game wants you to get out of it.
Yes. Like, my modern short attention span, like after a couple hundred clicks of nothing happening, I was like eyeing my phone. I was like, I could read Twitter with one hand while I click here. And then I was like, even that feels like taking away from what they're going for here. Like I need to just subject myself to the utterly mundane situation in front of me and just click my way through it.
You need to be present. You need to be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Bathe in those clicks.
Yeah, it's $3, I should say. It's very inexpensive and quite short. There is a little more to it than I have described here. But they're not wrong. It is like a 45-minute experience, but it's got I feel like we need synonyms for vibes. You can't just say vibes all the fucking time, but it's got vibes. Like it's got like there is an atmosphere, there's a tone to it that is pretty unique and kind of disturbing and kind of amusing at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I will say I'm not 100% certain about this, though. I think this is the case. I think the reason this game is coming out now when it is, and the story around it, is that I think Xalavier and the people at Strange Scaffold have had this game done for a little bit, and they just didn't schedule it. Like, it literally was just done, and then I think at some point Xalavier told someone, oh yeah, I have a game that's just done that I just have sitting around, and I don't really know when or if I'm going to release it or whatever. And I think the person he was talking to got really mad. It was like, the fuck you mean you have a game that's just done and you're not doing anything with it? And that's the Strange Scaffold way. It's just, they just churn these things out, man.
It's kind of an anomaly. I mean, Will, you've worked in development, you tell me, but I don't think I've ever seen a developer this prolific, this quickly.
I mean, so I haven't played a whole lot of their stuff, and I don't know how much goes into it, but like there's an interesting aspect of like limiting the scope of your game to one room and one character who talks, and like if you have the voice actor available and on staff, it seems like the kind of thing you could kind of crank out pretty fast. I mean, there's an appeal to that, right? To limiting yourself that way. Well,
and then the thing is, working at that scale, does make you a lot more nimble, because you don't have a ton of people that you're not trying to make these gigantic things. Like, I think El Paso Elsewhere was at that time their biggest, most involved game at that time, and that took a year or two to make. But you play it graphically, it's not that over the top. It's not a game that needs like an enormous amount of like visual art in it, but it has the most visual art of anything they'd made up to that point. And I think it seems like what they can do is, when they have an idea for something, when Xalavier or anyone else he's working with has an idea, they can just sit down and start working on it, and they don't have to plan 3 or 4 years out. They can just say like, this is going to take us like a year to make, so let's just do that in between these other things we're also making. And, obviously not every developer can work that way, but it seems like whatever he has designed for him and his collaborators works really well for them.
I have a friend who makes small arcade games, like literally like arcade style, like early 80s arcade style shooters and stuff like that. And he does those because he likes to work by himself. So he can do the art, and he can do the sound, and he can do the programming. And he as he said, like, I'll work on it for like 6 months at a time. But when I look at the total number of hours that go into the actual working on it versus thinking about it and playing it and testing and all that stuff, it's like 80 or 100 hours worth of actual work that goes into that small game. And then he chucks them up on Steam for $1 or $2. And like, it has a nice little business there. And it, like, I think there's a bunch of interesting ways to constrain yourself. And this is the weird one, but I think there's a lot of other people doing similar kind of stuff in more traditional areas, let's say.
Yeah, like Exit 8 was another one last few months, or like late last year, that like $4 and also quite short, but yes, like just a lot of cool, inexpensive little stuff on Steam these days. This game, like they are very wise to put that thing up front about telling you exactly how long this game is, because I might not have stuck it out. If I didn't know roughly how long it was, because it's a lot of clicking. Like I'm going to stress again. Like there is an element of brute forcing your way through this game, and making it clear up front, like, hey, you will get to an end of this. We're not just fucking with you. Like, we are not stringing you along for our own amusement. Like there is an end point to work toward here. It was definitely helpful for just knowing, like, okay, I can just sit down and play through this whole thing right now.
Honestly, I love that, because I played 64, which is another kind of clicker, like a relatively new clicker earlier this year. And like, it's a really neat game, but it is long. It is long even for a clicker. And like, I probably wouldn't have jumped in if I had known I was going to spend 6 hours of active time making the clicker go. Like 30 minutes of active time making the clicker go is fine. Or Rusty's retirement, kind of like putting some mini games on there, so you have to do some optimization and stuff like that is totally worth it too. But yeah, limited clickers, put a cap on them, man.
Yeah, can't be clicking forever. That's just not good for you or your joints.
Yeah, let me tell the machine how fast I can click optimally, and then use that information and extrapolate what I would be doing. We need like DVRs, but for clicker games, is what I'm saying.
I don't think that's going to catch on. I'm sorry, Will.
It's a great idea. I don't, this is next level thinking, Alex.
All right, well, you're going to have the one to. I think you're going to have to be the one to bring it into the world, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's my Clickmaster 3000. You pay me $10 a month. I'll click your my machine will click the clicker games for you, and it'll tell you the gist of what happened, so you don't have to actually play the clicker games anymore.
And the next thing you know, you're building a click farm in the Central Valley that's just clicking for thousands and thousands of people, and you are ruining the environment.
Look, I'm bringing jobs to the Central Valley. It's what we all need.
No, you're not. You're creating a fucking, like an automated clicking service. You're creating a clicking farm somewhere in the middle of fucking Modesto, and you are making it hotter there than it already is.
Look, I'm going to have to raise a few $1 billion to build an AI click farm. And sure, we're going to use some water. We're going to probably grind up some animals to power the whole thing. It's biofuel. But it's a whole new industry, and this is the next great leap for generative AI, Alex. That's what I'm saying.
Can we turn the whole product into a little medallion that hangs around your neck? And can we also go spend a ton of money on a cool domain?
What if we make it a JPEG instead of a cool little medallion? And it's perfect right there. Yeah. And we put a .ai domain on it. I'm going to get the deck ready. We're going to be billionaires. That's all I know is the way out of this.
Please do not click my JPEG. All right. We got one more game here. Tell me about Infection Free Zone.
Yeah, so I'm an absolute sucker for like a SimCity zombie apocalypse crossover.
Is that a thing? you say that like there's a lot of them, but
there's not enough of them. Like Sarah Northway did 3 rebuilds like a decade ago. They were, I think, started out as iPad games maybe, and then they ended up making their way to Steam eventually. And they're basically like kind of cartoony. Hey, you have a little isometric view of a town. You have to build up like medical facilities and barracks and stuff like that, just like you would in a hybrid of a base builder and a SimCity type thing. The latest one of these that I found out about is called Infection Free Zone. It came out in early access on Steam in April, and like it has a lot of positive reviews, so people have been playing it. But the hook is you pick the area on the real map from like a Google Maps type view of where you want to build your base. And like you can zombie up your neighborhood.
Like it is your neighborhood. Like it's legit current map data.
Like my base is set up in the Starbucks down the street from my house. I built fences and walls around it. I tore down the surrounding buildings so that there'd be clear lines of fire. I built a science apparatus and more barracks and like a daycare and all the other stuff that you need in a thriving post-apocalypse. And I deal with the oncoming hordes on a night-to-night basis.
Is it like pretty? I mean, map data is good. Publicly available map data is pretty good these days. I assume it would spit out a pretty accurate in-game map, but
so like the street placement and the dead ends and the cul-de-sacs and all that are pretty accurate. The actual buildings, I think for creative license, they're mostly apartment buildings. Like I live in a place where there's a lot of single-family homes. And they've replaced most of those single family homes with like 3-story kind of townhousey apartments.
I see. Okay.
But yeah, like you have to send people out to loot. They know where like the police station and fire stations are. So you loot those. You loot the civic center, like the civic, the community center. I looted the Taco Bell by the beach.
Of course,
as one should.
I mean, it's the fancy Taco Bell.
Yeah,
and like any like these games, usually like you're more likely to find ammo and guns in the police station. You're more likely to find fuel in the fire station, stuff like that. You can find cars and like take cars, and then you can expand your looting area pretty substantially, and you kind of break it up into like builders who are working on expanding your base, and like scouts and defender people who go out in the world and find the stuff you need to survive. You can build farms. It's one of those. It's early access, so like the balance stuff is a little up and down. Occasionally you'll just get a zombie horde that's absolutely huge and will wipe you out, but it's the type of game I usually play like a roguelike. Like there's no ongoing story or anything at this point. You're just trying to survive, and eventually it gets so hard you can't survive, so you see if you can survive longer next time. It seems it's quite good for what it is, and I think it's like $20, so it's priced. I felt like it was priced right.
Yeah, I just looked it up on Steam. It's $20.
Like the game itself sounds fine, but really it's that real world map hook that makes it sound so potent. You know, like for example, the house I grew up in was on the side of a hill. You know, and I'm just thinking about like what it would be like to fortify that house and defend like tower defense style from shit coming at it. But like you said, I don't know how accurate the structure would actually be there.
Well, so the shape of the structures will be right, but the actual structure will probably be a bigger building. The thing I want to do is go. So I did this suburban area. I did a quick game in a rural area and just got wrecked because it was really hard because the density was really high. I want to do a real rural area and go out in farmland where there's like no buildings and see what happens, because a lot of it is repurposing existing buildings to house your, to build your tech tree up and your survivor infrastructure and all that stuff.
Yeah. Is the data set limited to just, excuse me, like major areas, or is it like the entire country?
It seemed like it was Google Maps. I can fire it up and see if you want, but yeah, it was like it gave me a map of the United States and I was able to pick an area. Click in.
Yeah, that seems pretty definitive. Yeah, I need to pull this up just to see how that works. If nothing else, that's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Like everybody
I want to
wants
see more
to do
of
their
this.
house.
Yeah, I want to see more of this concept, even if it isn't, a perfect one-to-one rendition of what you see on a real map. Like the idea of just taking actual regional data and doing stuff with it. Like it's something I kind of wish something like American Truck Simulator did a little bit more of. Like, they're taking a lot of creative license with their stuff because they kind of have to with the way they shrink everything. But like, I wish there was just something they were pulling from some of that real world map data the way like Flight Simulator does and stuff like that. And this is like kind of a neat, novel way to do it.
I feel like if there is any community that would want a like real life-size to scale map of the United States to have to drive across, it's that one. Like,
yeah.
people would like devour that, right? If they had to drive the literal entire length of the continent.
Well, and there's tools to make that stuff happen. They're just hard. So there's like
it's
all
not
sorts
an
of
easy
tools.
thing.
Yeah, there's all sorts of tools that you let you generate dynamic roadsides, right? Like you can load up all of your different load up a whole bunch of different assets for different types of buildings that are available, and like things like Walmarts and big strip malls and stuff like that, and then you can lay them out in a programmatic way so you have infinite road, but making it believable and feel right is the hard thing, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, sounds cool.
NeoCab did a lot of that. Yeah. So anyway, this thing seemed neat. I've enjoyed it. I played a couple of pretty good sessions with it. So.
Well, you've put something in front of me that I am probably going to download after we are done here. So I'm going to go check that out.
Godspeed. Let me know how your town works out, Alex.
I will. And I think that is going to wrap things up for the video games, unless anyone else has anything else. Nope. Okay. Well, we're going to take another break here, and then we're going to come back with the news. So stay tuned. All right, we are back, and it is time for the news. And as so often the case these days, the news is not particularly great, especially today, because we have another big layoff happening in the industry. This time it appears to be at Bungie, who is both axing and repurposing a very large portion, it seems like, of their staff.
Yeah, this is huge. This came down like 2 hours before we started recording, so this is very much kind of breaking right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is a massive layoff and reorg within Bungie that there's a lot here.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Kind of hard to know where to start, but I guess the numbers are, like, so Pete Parsons put out a blog that kind of more or less detailed the numbers, but I'm just going to quote from Jason Schreier. I think it seems like he may have a little bit of extra inside information about some of these numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are as follows. So they are or were a 1,300 person studio, which is huge, of course. 220 people just being laid off flat out today, like out of the building. It sounds like last day today. Another 155 roles are being absorbed into Sony.
Okay.
We are deepening our integration with Sony Interactive Entertainment, working to integrate 155 of our roles, roughly 12%, into SIE over the next few quarters. SIE has worked tirelessly, identify roles, enabling us to save a great deal of talent that would otherwise have been affected by the reduction in force. So, like,
right.
Flat out, this would have been another 155 people cut if they were not finding places for them within Sony. But that sounds like those people will not be contributing directly to Bungie anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Thirdly, he goes into details about what precipitated this. You can take three guesses. Overinvestment and then economic downturn and now not sustainable is essentially the message. But he does go into some detail about, like, hey, we've had like several incubation teams going alongside Destiny and Marathon as we kind of figure out what our next big thing is.
Mm-hmm.
One of those incubation teams is being spun off into a new studio under PlayStation Studios. And he doesn't obviously say what the nature of the project is, but he does say an action game set in a brand new science fantasy universe.
Okay.
So who knows exactly what that is, but like there's been kind of gesturing toward Bungie having a new project of some magnitude for a while. They took a large NetEase investment a while back. People have followed trademarks they filed around the term matter, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, a lot of people have been kind of waiting for, like, okay, the Marathon is something they're working on, but what's their like other next big thing? Like they've got something that's not multiplayer only, like what's their kind of next big single player thing?
Yeah.
It seems like that's probably what this was and is going to be. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to be under Bungie anymore. It's going to be its own studio now.
I mean, it makes sense that they would roll the thing that they feel the most confident in, that they and Sony feel the most confident in, into its own studio, I guess. I mean, that kind of feels like a vote of no confidence in the existing Bungie leadership by Sony, though, saying, hey, we want to get these people out from under you all and have them on their own where we can just manage them directly rather than run through the Bungie system.
Well, it could also just be a lack of certainty. I mean, as much as it might be a lack of confidence in management, it also be like they don't know what they want to do with Bungie at this point. Like, it does feel like ever since they took possession of Bungie, they have had some different notions about what that studio was going to be, especially, once the Destiny 2 stuff kind of wrapped up. And it feels like either that hasn't come to fruition or they just haven't figured it out yet, because so far, mostly what Sony has done with Bungie is lay people off.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've gotten these last couple of expansions over the line since they came under the Sony umbrella, but those were like well underway before the acquisition happened. I mean, in fact, they announced all those expansions all at once. If you remember, like 3 or 4 years ago, they were just like, hey, here's like our next 3 expansions.
I just don't understand having a giant. I mean, maybe I haven't played Destiny 2 in a long time, full disclosure, but it seems like if you have a giant live service game saying, hey, we're done with the giant live service game is not how you manage a giant successful live service game that say a giant platform holder would buy your studio for. Well, I don't know.
I think the way they've messaged it is like that they finished the current storyline, or they finished the kind of like, the Traveler pyramid ships. Like, ask me anything about the Destiny fiction. Like, I haven't kept up certainly in 3 or 4 years, but like that original arc that they were building toward with the kind of dark faction coming in, and again, I'm not super up to date on it, but like I think that's what they were saying. They've concluded not like Destiny is done, but more like that's a natural stopping point for that story, and then they'll move on to something else. I mean, he literally opens this blog post by saying it's become clear that we need to make substantial changes to our cost structure and focus development efforts entirely on Destiny and Marathon.
Right.
So that's what they're doing inside of Bungie is just the 2 announced projects.
It's so frustrating because we knew in 2020 and 21 when people were projecting out and they were like, look at all this growth in games. And it, during the time when nobody left the house for a year and a half or 2 years, it was utterly predictable that you're not going to see that growth indefinitely, right? Like that was a one-time, once in a lifetime event that should have been treated as a gift, like the one good side of this whole awful period. And instead, everybody grew, hired up incredible amounts, way more than they should have, and then like we're in a situation now where we're laying off people left and right, and it sucks. It's really bad.
I mean, what's to stop the people in the position to do the overextending from doing the overextending when they don't have to suffer the consequences of overextending, though?
Right. And now, I mean, look, I don't want to frame a whole lot of people losing their jobs as an interesting time for anything, because it's not. It's terrible. Like, this is all terrible. But I will say, this is a really interesting point for labor in video games, because you are having all these layoffs. The studios that are now under Microsoft, especially the ones that were part of the Activision deal, are now starting to unionize. And then we also have Bethesda Game Studios, which is now unionized. And so it's like there is a real tension now between a lot of these companies that don't necessarily have unionized workforces that are just laying people off en masse, and this nascent and seemingly beginning serious movement toward unionization. I think we're probably at that point where those two things are going to crash into one another, and we're going to find out exactly how dedicated a lot of these management types are to making sure that they never unionize, because more workforces are going to see what's happening here and be like, we got to do something.
Well, and in a world where the U.S. and European governments aren't preventing giant mergers from happening,
right?
Labor unionizing is the only thing that's going to put that's going to make this tenable in an ongoing way. I think like there has to be something pushing back, or else we're going to end up in a world where the only two brands are Walmart and Taco Bell, and Taco Bell makes the games and Walmart makes the consoles, right?
Right. So, we'll see where this goes. I mean, our thoughts with everyone who lost their jobs today at Bungie. It was a lot of people, and, some of them seemed like they were people that were in pretty senior positions.
Yeah, I mean, 1,300 people down to 850 is a massive reduction in, what is one of the most storied developers still going, and to be fair, not
one of the longest histories for sure.
Right, right. Like not that entire number actually losing their jobs. A lot of them just being kind of moved under different banners, but still, it's a massively chaotic move.
Yeah,
I'm sure has resulted in a lot of upheaval for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. I mean, every time I think we're done with the bad business news in games and layoffs and all that, there's always another rock to flip. So
there's always a new quarter coming up where someone has to announce that the cuts they are making in order to make their numbers go up.
Yeah. And I mean, so that had been kind of the reporting about Bungie for a while, was that, especially after Lightfall, last year's expansion was not received super well, like they kind of had not a lot of runway left, to, I'm mixing my metaphors here, to right the ship. Obviously seems like Sony kind of coming in and maybe taking more control of what they're doing now.
Yeah.
I love when the Sony deal happened. I loved the hubris of Sony saying, hey, we can look, everyone else who's tried this, Microsoft, Activision, we know that they've been through this ringer, and look, but we finally at Sony are the ones that are going to be able to kid glove our way through managing Bungie and making this a successful. And I mean, I guess it's still going, so the opportunity to make it good is still there, but they have a 20-year history of being, challenging.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And who knows what the future of that third project is, Like I said, like it's been like Marathon sounds cool, but it's a multiplayer first game, so it's just that's a different audience than would have shown up for something like a Halo that was very story driven, so it's just kind of been this open question, like, hey, what's Bungie's like next big universe? Like what's their next big super ambitious narrative thing? And who knows how that changes now that that's not actually happening within Bungie anymore.
Well, and like Sony, they have to be a little less hungry for a big live service game now that after Helldivers hit, but they really, like, where Microsoft has a bunch of these big franchises, they don't have anything in that kind of ongoing revenue pile except for Destiny. So I have to imagine that when they're looking at what people at Bungie are spending money on, single player one-off purchases are not as exciting as, hey, we need a game that's going to generate constant revenue over a 10-year period. and like that's how you end up with these decisions and this stuff spinning off and all that. So,
well, this is not the only story on the labor front this week. It does feel like we're having a little bit of a, reset from last year when the actors went on strike. But in this case, it is the voice actors. The voice actors that work under SAG-AFTRA. SAG-AFTRA has officially called a strike for the major video game publishers, the ones that have been negotiating a new deal with for quite some time. And the sticking point, as you can probably imagine, has to do with AI. In this case, it seems like whatever provisions that SAG-AFTRA has been asking for in terms of guarantees that, basically voice actors will be protected against their work essentially getting overwritten by AI technology, whatever the studios have come back with has not met what they are looking for in terms of that language, and because they are stonewalling them to some degree on that effect, this is a big one. This seems like the biggest sticking point for a lot of these negotiations over the last year. They are now officially going on strike.
Yeah, it sounds like, I'm certainly not an authority on how union deal negotiations work, but we have already found common ground on 24 out of 25 proposals.
Yeah.
It's just this one, literally the last sticking point, but of course it's kind of like the big one for people in this field.
It's the biggest one, right now. Like, as much as, the aspects of salary and benefits and, work hours and all that other stuff were definitely part of these negotiations, the thing every creative right now is anxious about is where their work is going to get, taken or abused or, basically pulled from their control by uses of this AI technology. And, right now, video games don't seem like they have invested heavily in the idea of using AI voice work for, big projects for the most part. But it does feel like there are a lot of studios that are very much tenting their fingers and looking for ways that they can apply this technology to make their processes cheaper.
Look, Alex, if you can pay somebody for a day or two of recording and then generate 50 days worth of voice recording sessions into the game with that, what could possibly be wrong with that? Why? Yeah. What's the downside?
Yeah, the person who recorded the 2 days must be stoked because those other 48 days they can just go do other work. It's no big deal. Yeah, well, then that's not really how it works.
Yeah, no, it's it's interesting to me that as in the tech space, we're starting to see kind of like it seems like the wave might be breaking on the generative AI stuff at this point. Like there was a Goldman Sachs report a couple of weeks ago we talked about in the Tech Pod, like the market is asking real questions about how long companies like OpenAI are going to be able to remain solvent at the current burn rates that they're
not
under.
Profitable.
No, they're massively unprofitable. They're going to have to raise an enormous amount of money to keep operating through the end of this year.
And the point we made on the Tech Pod about this is that, the investor class does not give a shit about the ethics of generative AI. Like, they are only going to start expressing public skepticism if they genuinely see it as no longer like a viable investment opportunity, right? Like if they're looking at this and saying, hey, we're not going to make money off of this because it's not actually going to do what it's said to do, like that, that's the reason they're going to come out. So the point is you can probably trust that they really mean this when they say, hey, this is actually not happening. This bubble might be bursting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's weird that they would go to the mat on this when they've already lost once. And like the movie studio, when SAG-AFTRA has already won once, the video game studios haven't lost once, but SAG-AFTRA won last year. Was that last year? Or was that
was last year?
Good God,
it was at the very tail end of last year, I believe.
They won because the studios behaved like cartoonish villains, right?
Yes, robber baron shit.
Yeah, and as a result, there's a higher pro-union sentiment in the United States than there has been in a really, really, really long time.
Yeah.
So, keep stacking up the L's, guys.
But here's the thing. Video game companies have always been 4 to 5 years behind the rest of pop culture. So I feel like them suddenly, digging in their heels about AI after they watched the movie studios essentially not really get anything they wanted on that aspect of their negotiations actually makes perfect sense because they have to be a little bit behind everyone else. But I think they're going to run into the exact same thing of, there might be a couple of publishers that, really dig in their heels here, but it feels like the likelihood is this will last for a while, and then they will probably just cave on this for now.
Yeah. And this is fairly limited, right? Because it's only a handful of studios and production companies.
It's 12 companies, I believe. It is some of the biggest video game publishers like Ubisoft and Sony Interactive and a few others. Activision is on there. But that said, there are some other big companies that are just not in this negotiation. And I assume that's because they have their own separate deals or some other thing going on with SAG-AFTRA.
Yeah, I saw a separate headline going around that GTA 6, for example, is not, what's the term, struck work? Is that the way
it's not.
Describe it like that? Like that is okay, for example, which I assume means that they're okay with the union?
Well, so there's two things there. One is that the pipeline on games is so deep. It's not like last year where the actors went on strike and all of a sudden there weren't any shows in the fall that were new.
Right.
You know, this will take a while to work out, especially since a lot of the currently in progress games don't count as struck work. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, like, they're carving out, they've carved out like indie studio. Like, there's certain revenue thresholds, I think, is how this worked typically. I don't know if it's how this one works. But if your budget is less than X number of dollars, you're not going to be part of the strike regardless. And as a result, we're going to see games come out. There will be games that come out during no matter how long the strike goes. So I don't know. I don't know that this is as sure. Clearly, the studios feel like they can win something here, or they wouldn't go with the strike.
They wouldn't be digging their heels over one thing if it came down to it. But it seems like they believe this one thing is going to be hugely important for them. Whether it actually is or not, who fucking knows? But, video game companies making bad bets on nascent technology, what a shock.
Unheard of. I mean, this has to feel existential for most voice actors, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like the output of a lot of generative AI is garbage. It's like unusable, right? But like, text-to-speech is one area that's getting better and better and is just going to continue getting better, right? Like you absolutely could see a point where the technology is actually adequate to replace people.
I think is the best you're probably ever going to get to, though, because the thing is, as much as you can match a person's voice and as much as you can, create a tone with that voice, I think creating actual acting out of that kind of text-to-speech or, AI-generated stuff, it's just never going to feel right because it is not a person making choices in the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's better to get this hammered out before it potentially does get to that point, though.
Well,
yeah.
And like always, it's such a weird choice because, like, they're taking something that's a relatively inexpensive part of game development, right?
Comparatively,
the voice acting for... Like, you're not going to replace Tom Holland in a Spider-Man game. I know Tom Holland's not the voice of Spider-Man in the Spider-Man games. But
Yuri Lowenthal, but yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to replace Yuri Lowenthal with this AI thing. They might use the AI thing to fill in a handful of places or something if they don't want to pay for reshoots.
Yeah.
But the place that this is going to fill in is in the kind of work-a-day, hey, I voiced 65 background characters in a Spider-Man game. And I'm picking out Spider-Man because Insomniac's actually one of the studios.
Right.
It's on the list. And those folks, like, one of my favorite things on TikTok is following a bunch of voice actors because you get the hey, what's this job actually like? And it's a work a day, it's not like going and working in the coal mines, but these are people that go out and they work every single day and they're doing a lot of voices that you hear in everything that you play and see on TV and do. And you probably don't know most of their names. They're just people who do their job just like everybody else. And it sucks that studios are trying to replace them with the machines, which sorry, I loop back to my point. The point is that kind of voice talent is relatively inexpensive compared to somebody who can work the scripting languages and has narrative designer credentials, who is going to have to go through and tweak the markup language that generates these voice prompts so that you have something that sounds like a human performance and not just Siri reading a line to you.
Right. And again, I think where they are probably trying to target this stuff primarily is, like you said, it's the barks, it's the little things in the background, it's the extras, where they feel like they don't want to necessarily have an actor in there and pay them to do like 65 different barks for 65 different characters. But even that is still work. That is a person that wants to do that work, and, that is a person that you are paying to do that work. And like you said, I don't know that the technology necessarily outstrips the actual cost of just having one guy come in and do those barks. It feels like a lot of work to maybe get to a place where you just don't have to do a voice session. You know what I mean?
Well, and also the ever problem with this is that those low-level jobs have to exist because you never get to a point that you have marquee talent if they don't have a way to hone their craft over a long period of time and also eat and live at the same time. So anyway.
It's labor just like anything else. Well, we'll see how this goes. We'll see how long this strike goes on for. Right now, they are advising that they are not telling people who stream video games or anything like that to worry about any of this as far as like not playing certain games or streaming certain games. The only thing they've really asked for is just like, hey, if you want to show some solidarity, bring some visibility to what we're doing here, what this strike is, and why we're striking. That seems to be the only real guidance they have so far.
Yeah, and they even let people like go to Comic-Con and stuff like that. It's much less comprehensive than last year's strike so far.
Well, we'll see how this shakes out in the near future, I am certain. Let's move on to the next story. What is this thing about Call of Duty, Brad?
Y'all want to talk about a white paper?
Sure.
I love a white paper.
An academic research project?
Yes, as an academic myself, I would love to hear about this.
Yes, I am glad Will is here because I wanted to run this by him, and I have a question that has kind of shocked me as this has come out. So Activision has published a report on a kind of quiet research project they ran earlier this year, which they have experimented earlier this year with turning off the skill-based matchmaking in Call of Duty to see how it would affect like player behavior and retention rates, if it caused people to stop playing the game more quickly, which it absolutely did. So, skill-based matchmaking obviously is a thing that invisibly tracks what the game thinks your skill level is and then matches you up with people of roughly equivalent skill level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the reason that this jumped out at me is because this made me aware that there are people out there apparently who hate skill-based matchmaking.
Dude,
and I'm hoping you can demystify this for me, because why?
Because people are crazy, Brad.
Okay.
People here's the thing. The reason I don't know why this is, I discovered this a few years ago, mainly because PUBG didn't have skill-based matchmaking until recently, and it was a point of contention amongst the audience the other way. I think that Call of Duty players don't like skill-based matchmaking because they like the feeling of jumping into a warfare. What's their battle royale called? Warzone. They like the feeling of jumping into a war zone with 99 other people who are worse at the game than them. Yeah. And because, cognitive biases make us think that we're all better than everyone else around us, they assume that they're better than 99% of other players, and thus they're going to win. Like, a solid 80, nothing unreasonable, 80, 90% of the time I get the dubs, So when you put skill-based matchmaking in, instead of being paired with 99 chuds and one hero, they have to fight 99 other people that are near or around, usually within a couple of orders of separation of their skill level. And as a result, the fights are harder and they have to work harder. And they, instead of winning 80% of games, they win 10% of games. Or, in a realistic world, they probably win 1% of games in a solo 100-person battle royale.
Okay, so I will say, looking around a discussion of this issue, that's exactly what it made it sound like. It was just people who want a bunch of easy kills, and even worse, like maybe a lot of those people generate content about their chosen game and want to be able to run a bunch of footage of them stomping an entire server full of people. You know
what else they hate, though, Brad, is bots. They really, really dislike bots, the same cohort of people.
Yeah, I can see that, I guess. But, I guess I was kind of hoping there was some other more high-minded explanation for this, but it really does sound like it's just people who want a bunch of easy wins.
I think there are people who are, instead of finding the small victories in a battle royale where you win a hard fight or complete a mission objective or do, if you look at the evolution of this genre from like PUBG in 2017, which was, there was no skill-based matchmaking in PUBG until fairly recently. So it was 100 randos chucked into the server, and it worked out just like Battle Royale did, the movie in the manga. Some people who had the killer instinct did really well, and then most people took 100 hours to see their first win, which is insane if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
And that worked reasonably well when PUBG's peak online concurrent players was 3.2 million players, because with 100 people jumping into a game at any given random time of day, you'd have a wide spectrum of people, and it was unlikely that you'd get chucked in the same game as Shroud or some unstoppable aim god, and you'd see somebody rack up 25% of the kills on the server. In the modern era, where we don't see 3.2 million players in any battle royale, because there's a bunch of battle royales now, but B, people don't play that genre as much, and it isn't a moment where everybody you knew was playing PUBG in 2017. You do skill-based matchmaking so you get good games, not that you always win, and that's the difference, right? like, I think part of the magic of the battle royale in general is that you, like, every win feels really good because it's not two teams and you feel like you should win 50% of the time. It's that if you get 10% wins, you feel like you're doing great in a game with 25 teams.
Sure. I wonder if there's a divide between shooters and other types of games here in terms of that mentality. Like something about the incredibly fast time to kill, like you were just dropping people left and right in a Call of Duty style game versus like, I think back to like when I played a lot of Dota and StarCraft, like if I were to get into a match in Dota where the other team is like flailing around and has no idea what they're doing, that's the opposite of fun. Like that's a waste of time. Like that feels like, why did we matchmake and go through picks and bans and the whole thing, the rigmarole to get into this match just to have people quit after 10 minutes, like that sucks. So like it feels like these really twitchy, like lizard brain style shooters maybe lend themselves more to people wanting a bunch of fast kills versus games where, or fighting games are probably the same way, like if without significant challenge in a lot of multiplayer games, like what's the point,
I think the length of the game session really matters here, right? Mm-hmm. So if you think about early PUBG, those games were 45 minutes. And you think about that now versus a 15-minute Fortnite game or a 20-minute Apex game or like a 15. I think Warzone. Last time I played Warzone was like 15 or 20 minutes. It's been a few seasons. It's like your investment in that, anything that impacts your like that's a lot of time for a player to invest. And if the game if they don't get the thing they want out of it, they're going to feel bad at the end of it, right? And I think that's what we saw with this skill-based matchmaking thing. They turned it off. And either they were owning, which maybe felt good for some players. Like I don't personally find going out and killing a bunch of like I play Fortnite with my daughter on and she's a competent 11-year-old first person shooter player, but she's not been playing shooters for 30 years. And as a result, we get the way Fortnite's matchmaking works is they skill base you against the kind of, it's either the average or the low. I can't tell, but when I play with her, I get a lot of kids on Switches. Like I get a lot of people with names that indicate they're 11 years old and playing on Switches. And like, while it's fun for me to play with my daughter, it's not great to go out and beat up on a bunch of small children. Like it doesn't feel good for me. I'm sure some people enjoy that, but it's not what I'm looking for.
Tell that to all of the assholes out here complaining about this.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the thing, I read this white paper and it just seemed like a giant 15-page burn on PUBG, honestly, because like the thing that they describe where fewer people play every time and the people who play are more ingrained and more hardcore, so it becomes less accessible to new players and less fun for lower skill players, is literally the story of that game. And the other thing that's important is adding skill-based matchmaking divides the player base pool. So like you want to have fast games, so you have to have a certain size player base, and when 3.2 million people are playing your game, no problem, you're good. When there's 100,000 people playing your game at any given time, each time you subdivide that player base by adding more modes and more difficulty kind of cohorts or skill cohorts. And, some people even do social cohorts. So a lot of smaller games like Rocket League and another game that I think I'm not supposed to talk about yet are doing social cohorts where they take people who like to play certain roles. So imagine you're playing Overwatch and like I always play a healer and you always play a tank and Alex always plays damage. It knows what we like to play when we play with our friends, and it knows what we like to play when we play random, and it's more likely to match the three of us together because we need to have somebody who plays tank and somebody who plays damage and somebody who plays heal. So like you can take those kind of social cues and you can matchmake based on all that, but the more you break those down, pretty soon you can take a really healthy 100,000 average player base and break it down into such small chunks that matchmaking takes 5 or 6 minutes per game.
Right.
And if you're playing like a 5-minute Rocket League game, that sucks, right? You don't want to spend half of your time waiting for the next game. So it's a real, like, this is a really difficult thing to do. And I think it's rad that Activision, that they actually published this. Yeah. Because they have a huge sample size, a huge number of players, and they post actual real actionable information here that smaller studios can benefit from.
Yeah. So, and the numbers are very stark, just to kind of distill it down, like the split of people who had a worse time versus people who had a better time with this matchmaking removed was about 90-10.
So it's a vocal number of assholes who are trying to encourage people to ruin games.
Yes, 90. The returning player rate dropped for 90% of players.
So just to give you PUBG numbers, PUBG peaked in like December of 2017 with 3-ish million, 3.2 million in January of 2018. And then it had a gradual decline all the way through 2018 until 2019. And it's been pretty level around 400,000 peak during the day, I think and it's a little bit up over the last few months. Weirdly, they talked about adding skill-based matchmaking in April, and since then it's been up over that 5-year average. So
go figure.
Weird.
Anyway, yeah, I don't like several like game designers that I follow on Twitter when this report came out, like kind of just seemed to be very satisfied at being able to point at this and go, see, there is a reason for this. With results like this coming out, I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, just it's one of the hard parts of making games, especially games that a lot of people are playing, is knowing which feedback you should ignore. Rami Ismail often says that when players report something that they don't like, they're usually right about that, but that the solutions they give are almost always wrong. So, the thing that they don't like is the feeling of being just a normal chud in this game. And the thing that they say they want is no skill-based matchmaking. What they really want is probably more bots that actually behave like real players so they can get their high kill numbers on somebody that doesn't have a predictable name or something. Or maybe they should just play single-player games.
Yeah, they just want their dopamine. That's it. They want their air of superiority, and that's what it comes down to. We've got one more story here. This is a quick one. We mentioned some weeks back that Amazon was going to be releasing a Japanese language Like a Dragon adaptation TV series. They showed the first trailer for that this past week. It is a very short trailer. It is a teaser. It has no dialogue in it. It is more of just a check out this guy who is going to be playing Kiryu and some of the other affiliated characters. And, look, it doesn't show a lot. It does give you a sense of the vibe, if nothing else. I remain somewhat unconvinced.
Okay.
Is how I would approach it.
I'll be honest. I thought this was a live action trailer for a new game. I did not realize that this was for a TV show because of the way it's presented.
Yeah.
Is that as scathing as it sounds?
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, so here's the thing. Amazon, obviously, they had a big hit with Fallout. That thing turned out real well. This is not the same people making this necessarily, but it is Amazon. And I think my only real thing right now is I need to see what it's like when these characters talk to one another. Like, I need to see what that is. I need to see this Kiryu emote. Because right now, just looking at the guy, like, he's facially, I think he's not too far off from what I sort of imagine a real-life Kiryu would look like. But the aura is not there. Like, the presence, the feeling of this quiet, incredibly intimidating guy is just, I don't get that sense from this trailer, but it is a minute-long trailer. Like, you don't know until you actually see the guy starting to do the real performance.
Yeah, you also don't really get a sense of how quirky it's going to be. Like, how much of the wacky aspect of Yakuza are they going to pull into this?
Right. Like, is this Kiryu going to be helping a crew of Yakuza men who all love living as adult babies? Like, is that a thing that's going to find its way into the show?
Right. Or are they just going to go the, like, prestige cable route of, crime
serious
drama?
Crime drama, yeah.
Like a million other shows.
This Mad Men, but Yakuza. Like when he does a roundhouse kick, is somebody going to fly across a courtyard 60 feet into a noodles shop? Or is he, is he going to
break an entire bicycle over someone's head? Like, is that how that's going to go down? Or is it just going to be like bog standard, fighting and shooting? I don't know.
Yeah, is he going to be homeless for a while? Like, what kind of swings are we talking about here?
It feels like if they're doing this story, it probably is the stuff that mostly appeared in the first one or two Yakuza games. It's a lot of the stuff with him and Nishiki, who's his former friend and cohort, and some of the other early characters. Like, I haven't seen a Majima yet anywhere in that trailer, though I'm sure someone is playing Majima. Yeah, I don't know. It's too little to really get like a firm sense of what this thing is going to be. I need to hear characters talk. They get, I think, a basic flavoring right with this trailer, but that's all you have to go on.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, like you said, completely different creative team. Obviously, it doesn't mean that much, but like that Fallout show was like the best understanding of a video game property adapted to another medium that I have seen. So
100%, it's the best video game adaptation in a very long time.
The real question is this going to be like a beat 'em up, or is this going to be the more turn based?
I think this is
Yakuza.
beat 'em up. It's
Okay.
Kiryu, so I'm saying this is probably beat 'em up style fighting, less of the wacky JRPG stuff. And that, I think, is going to wrap up the news for today. Now, Brad, we have an email address.
True, we do.
It is podcast@nextlander.com.
Yes.
That is podcast@nextlander.com.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any emails for me today?
I've got a handful here that I could read.
All right, give me one or two.
How about Chris from Chicago?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys prefer super hard bosses to be optional or to have them be the end of the game? Shadow of the Erdtree had a ridiculous final boss, but it felt like a proper final challenge. I rarely go back to games after the credits, so I like the idea that all of my exploring has prepared me to take on the last gatekeeper in a game.
Yeah, that's generally, I think, how I kind of lean as well, is that if you're going to do the big mega boss fight, make that the last boss. I don't really want optional bosses for the most part in video games. That's just a personal preference, but I know some people love that shit. But yeah, I think you reserve your big hard thing for the end of a video game in all contexts.
Yeah, I'm totally the same. I want to be tested at the end of the game. I don't want to have to go seek out the optional challenge because, you know, like we just said, like coming back post credits always just feels a little bit deflating or kind of like an anticlimax.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you guys are so old.
I am.
The thing to remember is that now people want people to finish their games, right? They want to get out there. They want to see the end. They want to roll the credits. I liked when I fired up God of War and then I found those Valkyries and I was like, oh, I got to go back and I'm going to have some real punishing, just beat my ass into the ground fights that I don't have to do if I don't want to. But if I do, I get something cool. Like as long as the fights feel fair, I don't really care. I just don't like a cheesy boss fight.
Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, I don't have anything against those things necessarily. I mean, they've been doing it since Final Fantasy VII is the first example I can think of with some of the weapons, you know, that were harder than the actual end boss. It just, there's something, again, a little anticlimactic about going and fighting harder bosses and then going to the actual last boss and having that be a comparative cakewalk.
Yeah, like the last boss should always feel like a challenge, right? Yeah. It doesn't have to be the hardest boss in the game, though. It's like Dark Souls. The hardest boss in that game is that first night that you fight when you have no armor and no clothes and he just absolutely wrecks you.
Yep.
What else you got?
This is from about 3 weeks ago. Alex, you asked at some point, so this is a two-parter from Lons. You asked if it was possible to play Armored Core 6 with a Steel Battalion controller. To answer Alex's question, the answer is yes. Using an Xbox USB adapter and a program like Joy to Key to set up the appropriate key bindings, you can definitely live out your dreams of piloting an Armored Core with a giant-ass Mega HOTAS as much as you want. He linked a couple of videos explaining exactly how to do that.
Okay.
But also has a question. Since you guys have just wrapped up Cyberpunk recently, congrats. A question, Alex has said before that he's not as fond of Refused's output in the game as the band performing as Samurai. I was wondering, for someone who enjoys the vibes of those tracks, are there any Refused recommendations he'd make with similar vibes?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Refused does not have an enormous number of albums. They put out some stuff in the 90s, then they took a very long break and did not really start putting stuff out again until 2015. You know, look, The Shape of Punk to Come to me is still one of the great 90s like punk hard rock, albums of that time. I think their 2015 record Freedom is also quite good. I'm a little less fond of their 2019 album War Music, but it's okay. I don't know. Again, there's like 3 or 4 albums really you're talking about here. I think Shape of Punk to Come and Freedom are probably the 2 you should check out. And if those don't really hit for you, then you probably aren't going to have any of the other stuff hit for you either.
All right. There you have it. A couple more quick ones here. Here's one from Seth. My mother is going through chemo and isn't really able to leave the house for a few months. This is making her a bit stir crazy. This is a good question for Will. Would you recommend any VR headsets that don't require a PC? If so, do you know of any apps or games that would allow her to explore, even if it's not a real place like a museum? It might help.
So the only thing that doesn't require PC that's probably worth getting is the Quest 3 at this point. And I don't buy Facebook hardware these days, so I don't really know what's all out on the Quest 3. But there are a lot of like, hey, here are worlds you can explore kind of games that have come out over the last few years. So I think the one thing I will say is if you're on chemo and if you're feeling generally bad, bringing VR into your life may not be like a Steam Deck might be a better solution if she's amenable, if she wants to get into video games.
Yeah.
Like getting real into Stardew Valley might be more pleasant than hey, I'm gonna put on this headset that's gonna fuck with my inner ear.
Yeah, that was definitely my thought too, is the potential for nausea with the headset combined with the side effects of chemo could be a lot, but it might be worth a try.
Yeah, there's a lot of like chill vibes. Like the classic one that I remember is the Museum of Other Worlds. There was a Colin Northway jam late in the kind of early Vive days that was just a place for you to put interactive VR art that was like it had good music and you could go and sit and play with these sculptures and it was just like a chill place to hang out. It was nice.
Yeah. I mean, maybe something like Tilt Brush might be nice if you're under the weather and stuck at home.
Yeah, Tilt Brush is always good. But I mean, there's definitely some like exploration type games that are out now that are probably of interest.
All right, last email.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big one.
Okay.
DW in Seattle, entitled 11-year-old nephew wants a PS2.
Okay, get them one.
Like that alone is probably... My 11-year-old nephew wants to get a PS2 for Christmas. Like that is about the most heartwarming thing I could hear right now.
Okay. Why do they want a PS2?
Yeah.
Doesn't go into a lot of detail about that. While I still have mine, most of my games are kind of hard to find JRPGs, and I don't think those would be his style. So what PS2 games would you get an 11-year-old boy in 2024? Extra info. His favorite band is Nirvana, and he has started to play guitar. My picks are Tony Hawk 3, 4, and Underground, since I think he would like the soundtrack.
Probably, yeah. I don't know. Okay, first of all, how are you getting this PS2? Are you just buying like a used one off eBay, or are you getting a refurbished one? What are we doing here?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. Well, I mean, I guess that's for us to say, right?
Yeah.
I might look around for, it might be hard to like find a reputable vendor, but I might look around for like modded PS2s, and I don't mean like modded for piracy, and that's your business.
Yeah, you do what you want.
But there's all kinds of like sort of refurbishment mods, I guess I would say, for, we talk about this on the Ramblecast a lot. Like people are doing crazy things to old consoles to make them better today. Like, for example, people are putting USB-C power supplies in PS2s, for example. I've seen people do that mod on YouTube.
So you power it off of USB-C?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Which and like the power supplies age in these consoles, and let's be real, PS2s are like 25 years old pushing now. So like, the electrical components break down in these things. So a lot of that is an effort to just keep them running for longer. So it might be worth looking for a PS2 that somebody's done like a pass on, the drive motor and the power supply and all that stuff to make sure you get them something that's going to hold up for a while.
Yeah.
I would start, I think, by trying to reverse engineer what caused this interest in the PS2 to happen.
Sure.
I mean, if your favorite band is Nirvana, there might just be a real 90s fascination happening.
Yeah, but I assume that there's also like there's probably a YouTube channel that they're into that's been playing PS2 games or something, right? There's some spark here that caused this interest. And then like you should be able to take that information, go back in and like maybe check out their YouTube watch history or whatever and figure out what it is that they're into and then use that to make sure that you don't like that they're not looking for Guitar Hero or Katamari or something and you get them Shadows of the Colossus, which would be a pretty hard swing.
Yeah, I mean, look, the nice thing about the PS2 library is that it is extremely voluminous and very diverse. So finding PS2 games that this kid would be into, I think, would actually not be that hard once you kind of know what their gaming interests are, because there's a lot of stuff to choose from. Finding those specific games in a usable quality might be a little hard because, discs do rot and people do get them scratched up and things like that. But there's a lot to choose from, and if they're going to pick an old console, I feel like they probably picked the right one here.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here looking at a list literally pulled up the Metacritic ranking of the top ranked PS2 games, and like so many of these have come out on other platforms at this point.
Mm-hmm.
That it's it's tough to say like has he played, for example, San Andreas in one of its infinite ports? RE4, Metal Gear Solid 2.
How old is the kid?
11.
Don't let him play San Andreas. Like that's too young to play a GTA.
Yeah,
I have
so.
an 11-year-old. I'm aware.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
That definitely wouldn't have stopped me when I was 11, to be fair.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, there's cool uncle and then there's like there's good cool uncle and there's bad cool uncle. Be a good cool uncle.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of some stuff. I don't know. Maybe Devil May Cry?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
one
maybe.
or three. Like I think 3's probably the one to play there if you're going to do one of them.
Get him a copy of Guitar Hero.
I was going to say Guitar Hero is a good way to go. Finding the plastic
You have to
guitars.
buy the controller, though, is the thing. The PS2 one specifically.
So no PS2s had HDMI out, right?
No.
No.
Not by default, no.
No. But that's also, I think, fairly easy to come by these days if you buy a modded one.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say...
I could be wrong, but...
You need to, like, have a real look at the back of the TVs that are affected because, like, if you have a newer 4K TV, you probably don't have a way to plug this thing in.
No, you might, if you're lucky, have a component, like one component port in the back of your TV, but it probably, I think a lot of the more recent models don't even have that.
Yeah, I think it's probably been a while since most models had that head component.
So I was going to say the other way to go is to, I hate to say the same thing twice, but get them a Steam Deck and put the emulator for the PlayStation 2 on it and just call it a day.
Yeah, I mean... Judging by his other tastes, it sounds like maybe having the actual PS2 is probably a priority.
He wants
possible.
the vintage.
Yeah. I mean, if he's buying his Nirvana t-shirts at Hot Topic today, I don't know if that counts, though. I think that's, I'm just saying. We got my 3-year-old a Nirvana t-shirt at Target once. It was gross. I felt dirty, but I still did it, just to be clear.
No, you should feel dirty about that.
Yeah, it was gross.
So here's my call to this person. What was their name again?
DW.
DW. Here's my call to you. I want a follow-up email. 1, what's the solution for getting a PS2 to work in a TV? And 2, give us some more ideas of what this person's gaming taste is like, and we will give you much more specific recommendations.
Yeah, because there's so many. I'm just going through this list, and it's like there are so many. Like it's literally the best-selling console of all time. There are a lot of games, but so that's a broad range of tastes to account for.
We'll find you some stuff. We just need more info.
I really want to hear how this story ends also, so please keep me posted.
Gonna be the coolest PS2 owner on the playground.
Jak and Daxter's pretty good.
Yeah. Those early Ratchet games, those are good.
Ratchet and Clank.
Mm-hmm.
Shadows of the Colossus is still a banger. That game's still real good. Didn't run great on the PS2 though.
No, it did not.
No. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for emails. Again, our email address is podcast@nextlander.com if you want to send your own in. And I think that is probably going to wrap things up here for today on this here Nextlander podcast. We have a Patreon, as you all know. We cannot do this work without your support, and we greatly appreciate it, no matter what tier you are in. That said, we do have a tier, the Mysterious Benefactor tier, that gets their names read on every episode of the Nextlander podcast. And today, I'm going to read them names. Our Mysterious Benefactors for today are Sean Miller, RRE, Infelicitous Rips, Kelly F., Brian Lucier, Sky Warp, John Hubbard, Evan Cook, Mark Wilhelm, Jerry Lee, Deirdre Broke Crowdstrike, Gary Pejke, Robert Fisher, Bunny Fiend, Chad Rita, Statics, Fantastic Asm 89, Brian Murphy, Randy Duax, Andrew Teepkin, Alex Wu, It Me JP, Edward Chick, Andrew Slosky, Steve Lynn, Matthew Herrig, David Campos, and Tyler Treese. Those are our Mysterious Benefactors for today, the very end of July. It is July 31st. We are about to head into August. And we are also about to head into a week-long break. This will be our last Nextlander podcast for a couple of weeks, but we will next week have an episode of Never Been a Better Podcast, filling the void for all of you at home. And I have no idea what episode they're putting in there because I have not been keeping track of which ones Vinny is freed from the paid tier and which one's not, but I'm sure it'll be a good one.
He's been going in order, so I think this will probably be number 4, I think.
It might be number 5 even. Because there was a Christmas break, I think, also maybe where we did one of those too. I don't remember, but it hasn't been a great many of them. But that is what we do when we are going to be out of town. Vinny is already on his break, and good on him. Sounds like he's having a good, relaxing time so far.
I wonder what he's doing right now.
Mostly, I think he's been moving things from his basement into his garage so that he can get ready to start work on the basement.
Oh no, that's a bad break. That doesn't sound like a fun break. Like, I hope you're doing something fun on your break, Alex.
Oh no, he's doing some fun stuff. Like, he was at the movies with his kids today, so I think it's not all just like office work. I think he's having some fun in there too.
Okay, good.
My mom's coming to visit, so that is going to be my week off.
Nice.
Yeah, it is nice. This is I'm glad my mom's coming to visit, not a oh god, my mother's coming to visit.
Well, it's nice you can take time off and like actually spend time. You got to spend time with your mom.
I see her like twice a year at this point at most. So, I cherish that time when I get it.
Brad, you do anything fun?
Check back after the break.
Okay.
What about your idea of fun?
How about lying face down?
That can be your idea of fun. All right. We'll assume that's your idea of fun.
That sounds fun to me.
I've really put a lot of planning into this, you can tell. Maybe
it's fine.
My girlfriend's off one day. Maybe we'll escape the fog, which is pervasive right now, and try to get out of town.
That sounds like fun. Well, as we said, we do still have some things coming up this week. Brad, you're going to be streaming more Fallout tomorrow, or today,
true.
as of the time we're up for everybody. And then Friday, we are streaming, I think, some Xbox 360 games.
That's right. God, yes. The hammer fell on Monday.
Yep.
The Xbox, the 360 marketplace is no more. Well, we should save it for the stream, but you should go look up some screenshots of what an Xbox 360 dashboard looks like now.
Mm-hmm.
Now that all that stuff is turned off, it is grim.
Yeah, I bet.
No.
But I think we haven't quite figured it out yet, but I think we're going to pull some 360 marketplace favorites together.
Yeah. Just grab some games that we like from the old 360 library. I didn't end up going and buying anything new, but I have a pretty extensive downloadable library already on that game or on that system. So
same.
Wait, does that mean I can't download those games again, or does that mean
you
that
can't.
they're...
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
you just can't buy them.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't think anybody has quite taken that step yet. Maybe one of the Nintendo,
Yeah, the 3DS, I think you can't download again. And the Wii, maybe.
but by and large, nobody's quite been brave enough to just be like, yeah, you can even get the games you paid for anymore. But
Yeah.
You guys should speedrun Braid. Get in there. Just get that 30-minute Achievo.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't think I need to play Braid again. I've played it enough at this point. But we will play some other things from the old 360 library on Friday. And then, as we said, we are on break. There will be a Watchcast on Monday. There will be Commando, Dan Reichert. There will be a Ramblecast that goes up on Tuesday. That is the one we recorded with Vinny before he went on break. And there will be a Never Been or Better podcast in the regular Nextlander podcast feed on Wednesday. And then Thursday and Friday, just don't come around here, okay? We ain't going to be around. We ain't going to be doing nothing. So just go do your own stuff. Go have a nice time without us for a couple of days. And with that, I think we are going to go ahead and wrap up this podcast. Will Smith, you got anything to plug before we wrap up here?
You know, I do a podcast with this Brad Shoemaker guy called
we
Brad
do?
and Will Made a Tech Pod.
I heard that guy's a real chucklehead.
He's okay. I like him.
Yeah.
You can find him at techpod.content.town, where all great podcasts are made. And I'm also looking for a job, which along with a bunch of other people in the industry. So if people need someone with my unique skill set, find me on LinkedIn, I guess, is my social network of choice.
Catch me on LinkedIn. The most terrible sentence in the English language. Catch me on LinkedIn.
I feel like the worst person in the world, but yeah, that's where we're at. So anyway,
it's a really weird world over there. Every once in a while, I peek behind the veil and see what's going on in LinkedIn land. And every time I read a blog post from anyone I know, it's like, I wish I didn't know you anymore.
Let me tell you about juicing your engagement, and the best way to do that on LinkedIn. The way you do it is you ask questions you know the answer to and are going to make people really upset and or angry. And then a bunch of people leave comments, and all of their followers see the comment and are like, hey, do you want to engage with this post that made your friend Steve angry? And that's LinkedIn, a Microsoft network.
Anger baiting seems like a much bigger thing in the larger social sphere these days. Like, I've seen bands post like Instagram stuff. It's like, this drummer's fucking terrible. And then you listen to the clip and it's like, no, it's actually, they're fine. It's just a regular clip of them playing, but they're trying to rage bait you into watching the video or doing stuff. And that feels broken. This is not how anything should be working.
It just makes people angrier and angrier, and
yeah.
It's a negative. It's a negative positive feedback loop.
Well, we will never rage bait you here on the Nextlander podcast. Only the most authentic bad opinions will do on this podcast. Will Smith, again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's always fun.
Brad Shoemaker, I will see you in a day or so. You're going to do your solo streaming, but I'll see you on Friday.
Yep, looking forward to it.
And I have been your dutiful host today, Alex Navarro. It's been a pleasure. We look forward to having Vinny back because I don't love being in the host chair for the big podcast, but I think we had some fun today.
Yeah.
A great substitute, Vinny.
I do my best. And that's going to do it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.